All right.
So I'll start us off. I always start it off, Brian.
You do.
Okay.
Because you have to give some sort of illusion of credibility.
Yeah.
Purpose.
Yes. Okay.
Before I inevitably take over.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey everyone, my name is Peter Mancuso.
And I'm Brian Koch.
And today, in our lead up to Coco being released by Pixar in late November, the Countdown to Coco, as it's called, we're tackling the third film released by Pixar, 1999, which is, what's it called, Brian?
The Toy Story 2.
The Toy Story 2.
Yes.
So this is following, like I said, 1999. It's following their two first films, Toy Story and The Bug's Life.
The Toy Story. You forgot
the Toy Story.
That's embarrassing.
And The Bug's Life. So, Brian, why don't you, what are some initial thoughts about this as we start our discussion?
Well, I adore this film. Even more so than the original. There's a lot of, I'm just going to call it out right now. There's a lot of bad talk around these parts. Not just these parts. I see this growing school of thought that Toy Story 2 is the worst Toy Story movie.
Which is objectively wrong.
Dead wrong. Which we'll get into Toy Story 3 later, because I think it's 2 and 3 that always really go back and forth. This is better than the first movie. It's better. It's bigger in terms of scope. It's more emotional. It's funnier. The animation's better. The actors it is better on literally every level than the first one. And the first one is wonderful, but this is a superior film.
Yeah, no, definitely, because we were talking about with Bug's Life the very few things that Bug's Life did better than Toy Story.
Right.
This movie does,
yes,
and more in terms of improvement. We were talking about the idea of scale.
Yes.
Right? Oh my god, the scale in this movie.
Oh, of course.
In terms of the scope, rather, I should say.
Oh yeah.
What a sprawling adventure.
Uh-huh.
For these, and you thought the first one was such a sprawling adventure.
We went right across the street, but in this one we could go to an airport and
on a plane, on a runway.
Who would have thought? Yeah, that we could even go there.
There's a lot, and I think that's such a testament to their their willingness to take it, I guess, to that level, be really balls to the walls. Let's tell a really fun, cool story.
But there is an inherent risk to that, because of course it's not bigger isn't always better. But they remain true to the core of the characters, and they find a really kind of compelling sort of story to tell that isn't just a retread of the first movie.
Absolutely not.
And not a retread in any way. And sort of Woody exploring this concept that actually allows both him and the audience to become convinced of perhaps a new direction, a new fate for the character. It's extremely well done.
Yeah, definitely. And so the way I want to kind of frame this discussion is kind of looking at how successful it is as a sequel. Because even by 2017 standards, there's only a handful of films of sequels that are as good, if not better, probably that are better than the original. I can really only think of a handful. Yeah. But back in 1999, it was very scarce. You probably have The Godfather 2 and Empire Strikes Back, and that's pretty much it.
And there's a growing amount of sequels now, so inevitably there's some more that are quality.
Yeah. How do you have a film that is better than the original come out of its such troubled production history? And I kind of wanted you to tell a little bit about, ever so briefly, about kind of the production history, because a lot of people don't know this about Toy Story 2.
Well, it's quite the tale. So you have to keep in mind that we're in the 90s, and Disney animation, just animation in general, doesn't release theatrical sequels, hardly ever.
This is the era of Eisner and Katzenberg, of the direct-to-video sequels.
Yeah, the most recent one was The Rescuers Down Under, which of course was pulled from theaters very quickly, and it's went really under the radar. But yeah, so originally Toy Story 2 was also going to kind of fit into this slew of direct-to-video films that Disney was putting out. Pixar was still going to do it, but it was supposed to be, okay, it's shorter, just shorter than do. But Pixar, they couldn't half do anything. They refused to then just make an inferior product. So they were doing a good job, and then Disney was oh well, let's put this into theaters. And then Lasseter and company kind of took a closer look at it, and they were no, this is not of quality. But they were well, you have a rock solid release date in November 1999. You have to put out the film then. They're oh, well, I mean, but we can't. This will really corrupt the integrity of the first film. So within a little over 8 months, I believe, they pretty much overwrite the entire film. Of course, you keep our core characters, you keep Andy's room. I think they had the Al's Toy Barn sequence, but other than that, everything's... I think Jessie was originally like a cactus named Senorita Cactus, and she was just an antagonist along with Prospect. So like all that stuff changed, and like they added, and it's not just a matter of like, because it was a shorter movie at that point as well, because it was like for video. So it's not just padding it out. It's a matter of, okay, we have to really then restructure this story and make it more meaningful and impactful, and then from that, like, you know, it came the Jessie character, as I said, then came Wheezy, and instilling this whole then kind of then idea, this deeper meaning, as it were, of what happens when a toy isn't played with as much, if it's broken, if like the relationship with the child lasts forever, dealing with all of those questions, which is what really is the heart of this movie. So yeah, so they really then, you know, and it's so ironic how in this movie there's this great line when Al asks Jerry, the toy cleaner, like, so how long is this going to take? Jerry says, well, you can't rush art. Well, they did. In like 8 months, they made like a masterpiece of a film.
Yeah, because it's definitely you know, you and I have tossed around. I think this is their words, that this was kind of like their defining moment.
Yes.
As a
Thank you
studio.
For reminding me. Yes.
In the sense of like, because coming off of Bug's Life, you know, like this is really Toy Story 2 is really where they become the Pixar that we kind of know.
Make it or break it.
That in terms of definitely in terms of its original run.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like without this movie, you don't have Monsters Inc. or Finding Nemo or Incredibles or Cars. But you don't have those, I think, without this movie. And the success of this in terms of, and not only is there so much success commercially or critically, but success like giving that company the motivation and like the skill to do something like this at this scale. Because this is probably the biggest, like we were saying about scope, this is such like a sprawling, intense kind of narrative. Yeah. A lot happens. We talked about the first one having a lot. A lot happens in this one.
Oh yeah. And yet it's also just very intimate at the same time, because a lot of what is like Woody is dealing with is he's in this one location, it's Al's apartment, so it's sort of like almost he's having like a bottle episode while this huge adventure is like happening around him. So it really then it kind of then shows just like even though it may seem like the movie is compartmentalizing, it perfectly flows back and forth between the two of them.
Oh yeah,
it's very impressive how they managed to find that balance like that.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, I know. Then we were saying while rewatching it how it was very important to touch on what's obviously remembered as like a huge moment in Pixar history, which is of course Jessie's song, the When She Loved Me song. Yes.
For better or for worse, because some people would say this is the beginning of, and I don't necessarily think this, but people would say that this is the beginning of Pixar's like emotional manipulation, like that scene in every Pixar movie where it's like, this is the really sad scene that makes you feel like shit.
Right. Well, first of all, number one, it's for better. Second of all, I hate the term emotional manipulation with a burning passion, because what is a film supposed to do other than manipulate you emotionally? Do you like go into a comedy and then they tell a joke that makes you laugh and go, ha, oh no, I feel comedically manipulated, and storm out of the theater? I hate that term. I understand what they're trying to say when like you could see like the strings and you feel like you're being manipulated. Like that's true. I get it. But these people that are like, oh, anytime like they try to make me sad, it's emotional manipulation. Like just like get out. Like movies aren't for you. Like leave them for the rest of us. Who actually like sorry to be blunt.
Yeah.
But
so why does that scene work?
Why does it work?
Yeah. Because it's so kind of unexpected because you have to remember, like, although Toy Story and less so Bug's Life, but still so, there were emotional moments. Those movies were through and through adventure comedies.
Well,
So this was, I think, probably for an audience in 1999, this was a little unexpected from an animated film, because even though people had been kind of spoiled with the early Disney Renaissance films,
right?
They had never kind of done something like this. Like this is kind of like not just revolutionary for Pixar, not just revolutionary for CG animation, but I think a huge step in animation in general. Like I can't think of any other movie that has something like this.
Yeah. Even if you have something like Mufasa's death scene, like that's such like a primal sort of like, and this is really then kind of like out there. But yet also like in a similar way to with Buzz, like sort of like not like a direct equivalent, but of course we could project.
Yeah,
you know,
because the thing with Buzz and Toy Story that I Will Go Sailing No More, it feels like that's kind of like you start to see maybe the blueprints of this kind of scene, but that feels more like a dress rehearsal,
Right.
And this is like opening night,
because this scene we get like I think we're wondering why it works. The like a big reason is we build it up very well. We have we plant this idea of how Jessie is really afraid of going back into storage, is really just kind of dismissive of Woody's owner Andy. That's all he ever talks about. Seems adamant about like owners don't matter. This is the way to go. So we understand. We don't know exactly then why then she has this opinion, but they establish it very clearly. So we have that going into that. And the other thing is that they don't compromise this moment at all. Just as integral to the montage is what immediately follows the montage, which is just this hauntingly silent scene of then Woody looking into the vent. We really take time to let the moment breathe.
Looking into the darkness.
Rush away from it. Yeah, it's such a beautiful scene, and the whole you think Andy's gonna take you to college or on his honeymoon? It's oh my god.
Also, him looking into the darkness is very much like that idea of nothingness. The way that Jessie feels about going back in the box, which is an equivalent nothingness or darkness.
It's so much more. It's you know what it is. It's the impact of it. It's the difference between sympathy and empathy, because it's not just it's Jessie's sad story. It's Jessie's sad story, which is a sad truth for this world, this reality of choice, because we see how it affects Woody and how it affects what he thinks his decision may be. So they nail it. Hit it out of the park with this sequence for sure.
Oh yeah. Also, it's cool that you sort of see the vestigial elements of the first Toy Story where they get away with having musical numbers, but they're not actually singing them. Because in Toy Story, all the songs are basically from the characters' points of view, even though they're not actually singing them. This is the one song written by Randy Newman, but I think in a masterstroke not sung by Randy Newman, because I think they knew to have a scene this serious, to have Randy Newman voice, it would have been a little
through Jessie's perspective, so it should be a woman, female singer, and so Sarah McLachlan, a wonderful choice.
The two talk about emotionally manipulative. Sarah McLachlan's the dog commercials.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which maybe why they chose her.
Quite possibly,
because they knew this voice is associated with people being sad.
Will make you cry. Yeah.
But definitely, I think the scene really works.
Yeah.
Because despite there being a song that does present a point of view, it is still very visual. If there was no words, I think it was just the music.
It would still get across.
I think it would just be just as powerful. I think it's really emotionally manipulative. I don't think so. I think it's handled delicately enough.
It's absolutely handled delicately enough. Let's just get rid of that preconception right now. But anyway, so let's dive a little bit more into this whole idea of the other concepts of being a toy that this movie explores. This whole notion of the Stinky Pete being made in the box, Woody being a collectible, or again what it's like for a toy to have never been bought. A dime store shelf.
Yeah,
such great ideas.
And then this goes to the idea of what makes a sequel good. Is taking what the original did and then expounding upon. Basically, a good sequel should expand and deepen at the same time. And this does both. It expands because the scope is so big and they go on this big adventure, but it deepens because it really explores these ideas that the first one kind of dipped its toe in, but more for laughs a lot of the time.
Well, interestingly,
and this one's really serious.
Yeah, I've never really articulated this before, but I feel in the first one, then there's more of an effort to they're toys, but let's show you how they're kind of like you and stuff like the staff meeting and whatnot. But this, it's really just we know you're in their corner, so here's just more stuff of the toy world that doesn't necessarily as directly equate to something you could understand, being on a shelf or whatnot. Of course, then there's a whole idea of being yeah. So then they're really then willing to be okay, let's embrace this and dive into some of the more high concept ideas.
Oh yeah, because it's a really interesting, really existential, really really dealing with these ideas of wait, what is your worth?
Yeah.
What are you here for? And does that worth expire?
Yeah.
You as a person. And I think even Woody says something about being loved by kids the best thing or something, right? And it raises a lot of interesting questions. So is a toy not if it's never bought, is it a failure as a toy? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or is it like and so you kind of understand Stinky Pete's point of view.
Of course.
We talked about villains in the last episode. Thinking about it, I think this might be my favorite villain.
So far,
in a Pixar movie.
yeah.
Well, I mean, even in the other ones, I think potentially.
Oh yeah.
But maybe I'm not sure. Definitely top.
He get like Hopper gets like more time to like play, but Stinky Pete like really then just like from an ideological perspective. Really,
because he's in the movie more.
Presents something. Yes,
even though he's not a villain in it, he's presenting his antagonist.
Subtly antagonist. That's a very good point. Yeah, and also just the whole notion that then he presents of like children destroy toys, you will be ruined, forgotten, spending eternity rotting in some landfill. Perfectly like foreshadows Toy Story 3, and he even mentions the whole thing like you think Andy's going to take you to college, which of course, ironically enough, that almost happens. But so. Yeah, the character really has like such like a relevance, and the fact that this time we did get a toy villain means like Sid like we kind of talked about this last time. He's not like a direct of course he poses a problem, but
because
this
before
is, like,
because
such a different
because up to this point it's like us toys good, humans or outside world bad. Right now it's like it's our own that are causing it's just like humans. Mm-hmm. So if anything, it's like it's still more trying to like bring us in from our perspective as humans, like getting into it like even much like humans, toys. There could be good toys and there are bad toys.
Much like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes does that. For that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it does. No, so that is really interesting, and that adds like a layer of richness to the world they're sort of like further exploring. But yeah, no, just like everything about this movie, and like I mentioned earlier about how it's not just about padding, but like let's play devil's advocate a little bit here, because there's some stuff I'm sure someone could point to like, oh, why do you need the Buzz video game opening? Like, why is that? What's the purpose of the Buzz video game opening? What do you say? I'll put you right on the spot.
Oh, jeez. Well, I think in what respects? I can think of a couple reasons beyond maybe just the script level.
Oh, like anything.
I think, well, for starters, I mean, how long is it? Like a 5-minute sequence, maybe?
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Within the first 5 minutes, you already know that in terms of like the technology, how much the technology has developed in the past 4 years.
Well, yeah.
And shows like how far it's come, and sets up that this is going to be a bigger story. Even though this sequence is fake, like it's part of a video game.
With amazingly good graphics.
With amazingly good graphics for 1999. Like, I think video games look like this now. Uh-huh. Like, side note, like, it's funny, like, Kingdom Hearts 3, like, the graphics look, like, better than Toy Story 2, right? No, but it shows visually that this movie is going to be a bigger scope than the last one. Yeah. So I think honestly, first and foremost, I think that's really the main reason. I think because it really, I think on script level, I guess it doesn't. I think it's just a good, fun way to introduce the story.
It's absurdly entertaining. Yeah,
absurdly entertaining. Also, introduces the idea of Buzz as the Space Ranger, and you're like, oh wait, is he back to being Space Ranger? And then when we cut out, and he's just like, oh, playing those video games. Like we show like, oh no. The status quo has remained.
He's changed. And also it is important, because I was thinking about this too, because I'm like forcing myself to like ask these questions, like, oh, is there, like, there must be something that, like of course.
Like, we're trying to look for flaws here, people. Like, we're trying to find flaws.
Like, I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but no, it's a perfect film. Because, like, we need to then reintroduce this whole idea of Buzz, the deluded Space Ranger. We need to show Zurg on screen, because of course then we have the deluded Buzz come back into play later. And I think it attests to how Toy Story 2, again, we were talking before about how, like, there's such a great balance between, like, the fun and the drama of it. It just so, like, unabashedly is willing to give us, like, this really fun sequence, and yet does have a purpose. And you could, again, like almost even equate it to how, like, the degree to which, like, playtime can, like, take on, like, a certain level of importance, and that's something that Buzz understands now, and also just, like, setting up Buzz as, like, more of an action hero. Like, this is, but like out of the Toy Story films, like, I think this is definitely Buzz's best, I would say, out of the three.
Yes, yeah. Definitely.
Because, like, three,
because he has such strong motivations in this one, and they're so understandable and like really fascinating. Like, he's like, I'm gonna go save Woody because he saved me. You know?
One, he's deluded. 3, he's then like a bit benched, because then of course they like tamper with the settings. But like in this one, it's really, he takes Woody's lesson to heart, and it comes into play in that wonderful argument that they have between, in which of course the you are a toy is reversed. It's such a well written and well acted scene. Oh my god!
Because that could have just been a simple like "you are a toy," and then everyone's like, "Ha ha, I remember that iconic
Role
line."
reversal.
But then Woody comes back saying, "For how much longer?"
Oh, it's so good.
You know, one more ribbon and he's done with me, and what happens? You tell me.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the movie doesn't have the answers.
No.
And that's the great thing, is that the movie is so interesting because it ends on this note of basically the theme of the movie can probably be encapsulated by 2 lines in the movie. Mm-hmm. When Woody says, "You're right, Andy is going to grow up, but I wouldn't miss it for the world."
Yeah,
or paraphrase it. And also when he says, when
I
Buzz
can't stop
asks
Woody from growing
and
up.
Buzz says, "Are you worried?" And at the end of Woody says, "Now it'll be fun while it lasts."
Yeah.
You know, I think that kind of encapsulates the theme. Mm-hmm. Of the movie is like kind of like, I'm not really sure what's gonna happen, but like it's probably gonna not end well. Like those last moments are probably gonna be really painful, but we're gonna enjoy while it lasts.
But all ends, I'll have my friend Buzz Lightyear keep me coming for infinity and beyond. And of course they echo those lines in Toy Story 3 exactly, which is wonderful. But we'll of course get to that.
Well, we'll get to Toy Story 3.
Yeah. But like, you know, like again, like that's us trying to find. So let's see like as well. So, some of the concepts that then like they took from the original and either like things that were like foreshadowed. We touched on when talking about Toy Story. One we didn't really mention was the puppy with Buster.
Oh, the puppy.
And how so wonderful, because like again,
what a great bait and switch.
What a great bait and switch. Because you think, of course, like given the way they react to him at the end, it's gonna be another problem. We saw how like Scud was such a nuisance, but no, he's adorable and wonderful, and you know.
Oh, probably the greatest like animation in any movie ever is the keep it casual.
Yeah.
And he does that
Not
little
that
walk
casual.
and he goes, not that casual.
And he has that great expression like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Like such great like, which also let's talk about the animation in terms of the technology.
Oh yeah.
Big deal.
Huge.
Right? That they aren't afraid to show the humans more.
Oh yeah.
And not just Andy, because in the first one it's like sometimes you get a glimpse of the mom. Mm-hmm. You'll get Andy every so often. It's like very limited. Mm-hmm. Sid you'll get, but Sid's supposed to look grotesque, so like it's kind of okay.
That's true.
In this, like Andy, you see Andy a lot. You see Al a lot. You see the mom quite a bit. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's a huge step, right? And that's basically on what we'll call on the road to the Incredibles, because that's their threat. That's probably the watershed moment where they can finally have. I mean, is that the first CG anime movie to feature human main characters?
I mean, I guess if you want to say like in Monsters Inc. they have Boo.
But I mean, I'm talking like main like they're supposed to we're supposed to buy them as like, because Boo's kind of like an animal essentially
Well, in Shrek we have Princess Fiona.
True. Okay, that's true.
But like a film entirely
human based. It's not really like
it's definitely Pixar's first, and I think it was the first overall for computer animation.
Like to be set in a human complete world, and not like a human, but there's also some monsters.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But what was I say? Oh, so back to animation. Mm-hmm. That's a huge thing. Mm-hmm. Because obviously the reason why they weren't showing the humans and the reason why toys was such a natural choice is because the CGI made everything look plasticky.
Yeah. So
it made perfect sense for them to be toys. Mm-hmm. But in this you have, I mean, it's not the most realistic looking dog.
Right.
But it's an animal. It's like a dog. Mm-hmm. I mean, they kind of have it with the bird and They have this. They kind of have it with the bird in A
Bug's Life.
In A Bug's Life, and they do have a dog in Toy Story. Right. But this dog feels a lot more like you
can see the fur. You can feel
Scud looks like a potato, and he moves like a potato. Like, you know what I mean, which is fine. But Scud. I mean,
Buster.
Buster. Thank you. Buster feels like it could be like a real dog.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And that's going on just the animation. That's like we were talking about it when we were watching the first 10 or 15 minutes. The animation already is just only 4 years. It's such an upgrade.
Looks so good. And I think the animation upgrade then kind of epitomizes sort of just like on a narrative level. Okay, it's like we need to then crank this up a notch, but at the same time it has to be recognizable and connect back to the first one. So that's just sort of like the inherent problem. That's like on every level of the production, but how they do it with the animation. It trickles down throughout the rest of the production, because everything is improved but connects back, and it's perfect.
It's just a perfect movie.
It's such a perfect movie.
Take that perfect movie.
Take that perfect movie. Yeah.
But let's talk about the writing. Yeah. I guess because so I was looking it up. I want to see how many of the original writers from Toy Story 1 were on this. I guess it's only Andrew. Was Andrew Stan one of them on the original?
Yes.
Then so he's the only one that carries over.
Well, I mean, in a sense, but I mean, they're all then involved with the story, you know.
Yeah.
So it's very much, It's the same people. I'm pretty sure for all 3 Toy Story films, They like went to the same specific location and like broke the story down. I forget if they did it for 2 because like it was obviously then so rushed into it. But I know then for Toy Story 3 then later on they did that. They did a nice little toast to Joe Ramps because he had passed on at that point. But yeah, so they all really then get together. I feel like especially like with the Toy Story movies, they all like okay like as a company like this is really our baby. We all need to then be involved with this and get it right.
Totally. And this is one of those movies that I would probably say, like, those first 4, like, even though this has a lot more dramatic elements, right? And we were talking about this, it still feels like a comedy, a lot of it. And it's like, and it kind of follows that tone that I would say up until Monsters, Inc., the movies had. And then you see a shift with Finding Nemo, it feels a lot more like it takes stuff a little more seriously, which I like.
Yeah.
Which is probably why Finding Nemo is, like, where you start to be like, these are, like, really good movies. Like Finding Nemo, I think, is where it started to become like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like these movies like are better than we even thought they were. But I quite like the tone. It's not as like that really edgy, but there's some like lewd stuff in here. Like when Jessie does her flip at the end and Buzz's wings come out.
Oh yeah.
Right, that's a little of course. That's a little suggestive. Wouldn't you say?
Or the joke about adultery that you pointed out.
Or adultery.
I'm a married spot. Yeah.
Which is hilarious, right? But even as a kid, like you get it. You're not like, Mommy, Daddy.
Yeah.
He's a bad man. Like it's just funny. Even as a kid, it was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else with the writing? I think it's just kind of like knock out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, on pretty much every level. Yeah.
It's hard to talk about the good ones.
Yeah,
we had a lot more to say about Bug's Life because it wasn't perfect. So this is just it's like how do you talk about like Shakespeare? Like let's try to critique Shakespeare. You know?
Well. Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Comparing it to the original and how then like succinct of a story that was. Like how do you really then go about like because it does retain so many of the same elements right down to like we see the aliens again. But like they do it in such a like so how do then you manage to find such a like a unique like not even a spin just like an entirely new tale and yet connect it back to the first movie like so seamlessly to the point that you can have all these callbacks and all like feel like natural like
so you're asking like how do you basically not retread it?
How do you not retread it while also then just like
feeling so connected?
Feeling connected, yeah.
Oh, that's a really good question. I think the answer is to be a genius.
To be a genius.
Which they are.
No,
I think it goes back to basically, as creators, they didn't want to tell the same story.
Yes.
So they were like, okay, let's dig deeper into these themes. Because I think when they make Toy Story, right, they have like a certain understanding that because the medium is so new, and also like they're not a famous studio yet, like the movie's only 80 minutes long,
right.
So it is very plot oriented. This has a lot. I mean, how long is this? Like an hour and a half?
It's like 11 minutes longer than Toy Story, I think.
Right? Those 11 minutes are really put to good use because you have probably even more complex plot with really intimate character moments.
Yes.
Which you don't get as many of in the original. So I think how they make this make Toy Story 2 is thinking about let's really explore these ideas, right? And then someone at some story meeting just said, what if Woody was like a famous toy? So it's kind of the reverse of Buzz.
Yeah.
Where Buzz is completely diluted by his toy identity, or by his brand, I should say, like his brand identity that he doesn't realize he's a toy. Where for Woody, it's the complete opposite, where he's so ingrained in his toy world that he's not even aware of his brand. And I think probably just it just snowballed from there. I think like you have like. I think just keeping true to the characters, I think. Is if you keep true to the characters, then all of those little connective tissue things really work. And here's the thing, they don't feel just like callbacks because like the aliens, if it was done poorly, it would just be like, oh look, they're there. Ooh.
But they're even funnier.
They're even funnier.
Yeah.
Right, because they're there because they're not the same exact aliens. Like they're saying other goofy stuff the best is in the outtakes.
Yeah.
When they're talking about like their acting jobs, the toothpaste commercial. Yeah.
No, we saved it early, so we're eternally grateful. No, you know what I think epitomizes it is for every then sort of like callback, there is then like a stride forward in a new direction because what I would say to really illustrate that is Buzz and how they have like of course our Buzz is like a completely different character this time around. You know, completely that like a lot more than
Very
understanding, very self-aware, very then like a loyal friend to Woody. Well, then also at the same time we have then like, oh well, then everyone loved how like hilarious Dilute Buzz was, so we'll bring him back too into the story somehow. So you get the most best of both worlds. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah,
it's so good.
they just bring him back, and I feel like some people might think that's cheating because you have Dilute Buzz in the third one as well.
Mm-hmm. But it's a tradition at that point, so you have to.
So do you think there'll be a Dilute Buzz in the fourth one?
Maybe. I don't know. I think the fourth one they might like adopt a bit of a clean slate in terms of some of these ideas, and they'll keep like we'll have to see. I think, yeah, that'll really then be like sort of like in terms of like how they define it. They need to then start making those kinds of choices of like, okay, is this then just going to be connected to the other three, or are we doing okay? That's the Toy Story trilogy. This a new chapter. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Unrelated question on Toy Story 2, but now I'm just curious. Bonnie. Is she going to be a kid in the movie, or is she going to be... How old is Bonnie?
Oh, in Toy Story 4?
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to age her very much at all. Like if anything, it'll be like a year after Toy Story 3. Because, I mean, if it's not focusing as much on the relationship between toys and their owners, it would be like kind of weird to then just have that be something going on. And I think that like dilutes a little bit of like both how important it was to see like Andy growing up, and also the fact that it's such like a special thing to see Andy pass his toys on to Bonnie, and you don't want to introduce them the whole thing of like, oh well, actually no, now they have to find somebody. Like, no,
it's basically just copying Toy Story 3.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah. But
I don't think that'll be the case.
Why don't we talk about the performances and the characters specifically?
Yeah,
because a big thing we were talking about with Bug's Life,
yes,
is how it's a little too crowded.
Mm-hmm.
But then watching this, I was thinking about in comparison to that, and
they're very careful with what new characters that they add.
They're very careful. I think you probably have the same amount of characters in this one,
probably,
as Bug's Life.
Yeah.
But you care about them more, and maybe it's because
only a specific amount carry through the entire film as well.
Yeah,
because you have a lot more at Annie's. Like Bo Peep doesn't get like as big of a role in this one. Which, by the way, like one thing that like I feel personally, like I like Bo Peep a lot. Even though she has a briefer appearance in this one, I like her better in this one than I do in the first one.
Really?
Because in the first one it's a little bit like, you know, oh, like she seems like she's a little too quick to kind of come around to Buzz. It's like, oh, I found my moving buddy. And it's like, oh wow, like okay, like I guess you just like don't care about Woody at all.
Yeah.
But in this one, she just has like, you know, she has some really sweet moments. I love the whole like, you know, like look on your boot, like and like she's like
very wise. Like, she's
very
like
wise.
A few lines, but every line is like really
good. Like she has like she really then gives off this sense that like she sort of then like can like ground Woody a little bit, because Woody's then so like neurotic and like drawing all these conclusions, but like that she's just like this really then like kind of rational like good counterpoint to Woody. In the brief moments that she has, she does leave a really positive impression. But yeah, we were talking about just the characters in general, like how they bring in Wheezy. Wheezy is of course like only just in a few scenes, but I love Wheezy. Such a great character. Joe Ramp, yeah. Oh my god.
So who's he playing Toy Story?
Joe Rampt?
Yeah, the binoculars, right?
Oh yes, he does. He plays Lenny of the Binoculars.
So he's also Lenny in this, right? Or does Lenny have any lines in this movie?
I'm not sure. Does he? I don't think.
Because Lenny's in it because Buzz is using him.
He is. I don't think he has any lines. Yeah, but
great performance by Joe Rampt.
Such a great. Yeah, no, this is probably my favorite from him, because it's so lovable and so me. I love the line of like, what's the use of prolonging the inevitable? So good. And yeah, it really then just like gets the ball rolling on this whole idea of, yes, there is like there will come a time at which a toy's life will change, its purpose will be come into question, and the character of Wheezy introduces this idea in like a solemn but also just very funny and smart way.
Yeah, because it's supposed to parallel Woody's fears.
Oh yeah,
and potential trajectory within the world of this film.
Just such a sweet, pure character. Yeah, love Wheezy.
Like I was saying, how do we feel about the Woody's Roundup gang?
I love the Woody's Roundup gang.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought.
Like, you know, but like, yeah, it feels so like, and it could still come across as like, oh, like if Woody then like had like this history, then why didn't we ever know about like Woody didn't know about it either. That's why it didn't come up, but it feels then just so like. Because I guess we're experiencing the reveal of it along with him, we totally buy into it. Jessie is a great character that, of course, becomes all the more deeper as the film goes on. It's really great what they do with Bullseye, and how even though he's a silent character, they express his emotions really well. And of course, we touched on Stinky Pete the Prospector, and how good of an antagonist he is, and the ideology that he represents. So yeah, no, the Roundup Gang is wonderful. And it does bear to mention how kind of funny it is that when they have the Woody's Roundup show, which is then of course that they're trying to make it look like it's poorly puppeteered. It's very difficult to animate that, so it's difficult to animate something poor. Yeah, so it's very kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah, there is the plot hole.
What's the plot hole?
That not so much a plot hole, but like the inconsistency.
The question
of if Buzz knew his brand backstory. Mm-hmm. Do all toys think they are the thing that they're a toy of?
Not necessarily.
Because why? Because if so, why does Woody have zero knowledge of this of his TV show? I can understand maybe not knowing the full extent, but how does he not know anything?
I guess you have to just understand that because if it was every toy, then you know what? Because if it was every other toy that was coming into the room, and then Woody would upon meeting them, be used to it. But he's surprised, you actually think you're the Buzz Lightyear? He doesn't deal with this all the time. So presumably we have to then assume that it's something
that's a good point,
kind of exclusive to the Buzz Lightyear toy. And it does this whole idea does crop up again in one of the TV specials they do, but I think it's totally fair to assume that not every single toy comes around like that. But of course, then there's all these questions raised of so then where exactly does Woody come from? He mentions a record player. I haven't seen one of these in ages. Well, in age, well then where
my suspicion, because I think during the yard sale his mother says this is an old family toy.
Yes.
So all the dark Pixar theories the father had polio, or the mother's actually Jessie's Emily.
Oh, it's Emily. Right? Yeah. Oh, I hate that. But it would be just too clean.
But I think the perfectly acceptable headcanon, I don't even say it's headcanon. I think it's just basically suggested forthright by the film. Yeah. Is just that it was just a family toy. It was maybe the father's toy or the mother's toy.
It had to have been.
And just passed down. Yes. So because if it was that old of a toy, so I'm sure Woody's old. He's been around the block, which probably explains why he's the leader of the group. Not just because he's Andy's favorite, but he's also one of the older toys.
Yes.
Right?
Makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, and I really like the Roundup Gang because it doesn't make the movie feel too cluttered. And that's the problem with Bug's Life is the characters, there's too many of them, it feels. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's probably just as many in this movie. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's also unfair because we're borrowing we've already developed them in the last one.
Yeah. But each of the they carefully choose each member of the Roundup Gang because because at first we're not really sure then how we feel about Jessie because he's being very sort of then bossy and abrasive to Woody, but Bullseye we immediately so that just kind of then eases in at first, and then Jessie of course supplies the deeper meaning, and Prospector has that antagonistic force even before it's revealed just how much of an antagonist he is. It's supplying that throughout the movie. So they could have made it there's 8 members of the Roundup Gang, but no, they were very specific in what they chose, and how many, and what their purpose was. Mm-hmm. So very, very smart. Yeah.
What a great performance by Wayne Knight as
Wayne
Al.
Knight, yes, and funnily enough, then him becoming Zurg for the Buzz Lightyear Star Command TV show. So he's the other villain. Yeah. And of course, Kelsey Grammer, of course, does a great job too, as the Prospector. Really having to sell both this sort of grandfatherly, just kind of Gentile nature, and also very hurt and tormented and angry and frustrated.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you said Gentile, did you mean gentle or genteel? Gentile is a non-Jew.
It's Gentile, not a
genteel. You're thinking genteel.
Genteel is what.
Gentile is someone who's not Jewish.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I'm sure he's also a Gentile. I'm sure he's also not Jewish.
Well, we do know that Mr. Potato Head is Roman Catholic. None of the other religions of the toys have been confirmed. Look, if
do toys have religion? I don't know. Do they believe in a god?
I'm sure some of them do. I mean, we know Mr. Potato Head does. So
he does sign the cross.
His beliefs on, yeah. So I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but anyway, so something interesting I want to bring up. Unless there's something pressing you wanted to discuss.
No.
I wanted to bring something we've talked about.
Yes.
But I'd love to get on tape.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know, we're taping this on a tape recorder.
Yes.
That's not true.
Oh.
Did my phone look like a tape recorder?
Yeah, you tricked me.
I got you. Anyway,
Good job.
the thing I want to talk about is the idea, and we talk about this a lot, the idea of the duology.
You mean the duology?
What did I say, duology?
You said the duology.
the duology, sure. Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The two version of a trilogy. And
It's a two movie.
It's a two movie,
But it's not a Bug's Life.
It's not the Bug's Life. So basically, what I mean by what is Peter? What do you mean by duology? Well, I'll tell you since you asked.
You didn't ask, but okay.
But so you have like this idea of a trilogy, right? Like this 3-part story, that somehow completes kind of like mirrors a 3-act structure.
Yes.
What I would claim is that not all stories, but some stories work better as 2-part iterations, very much like a play would. Like you have an act 1 and an act 2.
Right.
And they kind of mirror each other. And not all, and that's not to say that it's just like, oh, we'll just pick the 2 best because like maybe the 3rd one isn't good, so we'll call it a duology. Like I wouldn't say that X-Men 1 and 2 are a duology. Because they feel like a 3rd part is needed.
Yeah. It just so happened that the 3rd part didn't live up to expectations.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't mean in that sense. Like, so I wouldn't say like Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars: New Hope like are, because it feels like a 3rd element is needed.
Of course.
But like looking at something like The Godfather,
There's your duology.
there's a really good duology, but it feels very much like a big play, right? So you have like Act 1 and then intermission and Act 2, and Act 2 reflects it, like mirrors Act 1, and it kind of fulfills things brought up in Act 1, and so on and so forth. Another great example is I think, even though a 3rd one exists, the Nolan Batman movies.
Oh yeah.
The Batman Begins and Dark Knight.
Yeah.
It feels
that
very
works.
much like you have a rising action, like kind of a rising tension, and then everything kind of gets resolved in the Dark Knight, and I think it should have ended with the Dark Knight, and then they make the 3rd one. For the longest time, Toy Story was a duology.
Yeah.
Because Toy Story 3 wasn't. It took 11 years for it to come out.
Yes.
And
Oh, trust me, I remember.
my
My whole life, basically.
basically, yeah. I love Toy Story 3. It's one of my favorites, right? But I would go.
But what?
But I would say that Toy Story almost works better as a duology than a trilogy. And here's why. And I know we've talked about this, so I already kind of know what you. I would love to just like get it out and like hash it out like in the open.
It'll never hurt more. I mean, it'll never hurt less.
Yeah.
Hearing you say it.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready to get those Band-Aids out.
Yeah.
The reason being is because in my there are differences, but I think in general, if you really look at it in a generalized sense, Toy Story 3 basically deals with the same existential questions as Toy Story 2 does. Because Toy Story 2, the big existential questions are like, what happens to us when the humans no longer need us? And kind of dealing with like, and it's almost like they knew Toy Story 3 would be about Andy going to college. He lists a bunch of things, but now I think in retrospect, it's interesting to hear Prospector Pete say,
Of course.
or Stinky Pete rather, say like, do you think Andy's gonna take you to college on his honeymoon? So it's dealing with the same things in a way. Now there's more nuance in Toy Story 3 about like, even if you're not necessarily, even if you don't know if you're wanted, that you still do it anyway, like unconditional love, like there are differences. I don't want to make it seem like they're retreading, because Pixar, for better or for worse, they do not retread. At least up to this point. But I also like the idea of Toy Story 2. It's this existential threat of like not being needed anymore. But for Toy Story 2, it's more of like the thought of the unknown, which I think is scarier than being incinerated at the dump. Like I think that's a stronger thematic fear. Like, and I think it's so
On
perfectly,
paper, definitely.
and I think it's perfectly encapsulated with when Woody looks down into the vent
In the vent.
and sees nothing. And that's kind of represents how he feels. That it's almost scarier to not know what's going to happen. Okay. You know, like if toys knew, like after 25 years they die. Like after the 25th year or something, like they cease to exist. Like they cease to have consciousness. I don't think it would be as scary.
Okay.
I think it's scarier not knowing. and I think it ends so perfectly at the end when he's like, oh, it'll be fun while it lasts, and kind of like leaves a little bit more open to interpretation for the audience. Like, we don't actually get to see that.
Yeah.
But we can, and then Toy Story 3, in a way, for all that it does right, in a way compromises that. But, like, is still a very satisfying end to that story, which they're ruining now with the Toy Story 4. Right? I just want it to be 2 movies. Now you're doing 4 movies. But I just love to get your thoughts on this.
So you're done?
Yes.
Wrong. It's wrong. Okay, and let me explain why. So, basically, the difference between Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3, and, like, we'll start here, because I know, like, Leon Cridge, the director of Toy Story 3, has said something along these lines in the past, that if Toy Story 2 is about understanding that someday that the time will come that, like, the kid moves on from the toys, Toy Story 3 is realizing, you could think that you make peace with that idea, but then Toy Story 3, they literally say, like Woody says, oh, we all knew this day was coming, and Ham says, yeah, but now it's here. And there's such a huge difference between thinking, like, oh, I'll be fine, we'll deal with that when we get to it, and actually being like, oh, but, like, what are the decisions to be made now? So that's to start off. But then, following that, you have to think about, like, what Woody is grappling with and, like, his sort of, like, objectives and how they differ in the Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3. In Toy Story 2, we get to the point that Woody is actively considering, well, maybe it's better if then I go to the museum in Japan and, like, be able to be loved for generations and such. Which I guess then, like, is then sort of then similar to sort of the daycare center and how then you could always then have new owners. But, like, in that case, you could actually perpetually be played with. But anyway, not to veer off subject. Basically, so in Toy Story 2, you have then Woody considering maybe then I could leave Andy, maybe that's for the better. But in Toy Story 3, he is adamant about staying with Andy because it becomes about the obligation that he has.
In 3, you mean?
In Toy Story 3, sorry. In Toy Story 3, he's adamant about staying with Andy and understanding, well, if Andy wants us in college or in the attic, then that's our job is to be there for him. Which he then sort of course, then loses sight of in Toy Story 2, which is all the more reason he reaffirms, like, no, the right thing is to stay with Andy and like whatever, and that isn't something that is really, like, resolved or dealt with as much in the second film because it's about him exploring potentially, like, a different idea. So by then, like, having him go entirely to the polar opposite, you get to have this chance to really explore, okay, so if it is about then, like, how important my relationship is with Andy, at what point is it okay to then move on from it? Is moving on from it to suggest that it wasn't real? Am I being, like, insensitive to it because I don't want to do that again, like I almost did? So the movie is able to then deal with all of that. And yeah, like, and then when you say, like, how it's like you present this idea, which I definitely understand, that the fear of the unknown is more compelling than, okay, like, we were in the incinerator. But, like, with Toy Story 2, although it has, like, wonderful images, like looking into the empty vent, but by the end of Toy Story 2, there isn't really then, like it's somewhat melancholic, but they seem very accepting. Like, Wheezy is singing, like, his swinging rendition of My Friend and Me by Robert Goulet.
You got a friend me, babe. Like, this
got
is
a friend
babe.
of me, babe. Yeah, it's just me and you, babe. Yeah. So like everyone's fine and hunky dory, and it seems like, okay, we're gonna be fine. Like, it's years off, like, oh, like I can't drive yet. Oh, and when's Molly gonna be able to drive? Yeah. But in Toy Story 3, the fear becomes very real, and I think in the medium of film, it can't just be abstract. You have to then actually externalize it and deal with it. And that's what Toy Story 3 gives us. And yes, it carries over some of those themes, but that's what any good series should do. That's what any good trilogy should do. And, like, of course, then there's the people who are like, Toy Story 3 is just a rehash of Toy Story 2. But we'll get into that when we talk about Toy Story 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and I see that. And I think, and Toy Story 3, and I don't say this to say that Toy Story 3 is essentially pointless. And I think it has a lot of interesting concepts. Yes. Right? And also just, like, an amazing movie. I just think that while all that is true, I think it's a little more compelling. That fear of the unknown, because it's like, oh, but it's here. It's like, I think similarly, even though there is kind of a sequel to Finding Nemo, Finding Dory is really more of a spin-off, I would say, than a sequel, than a true sequel to Finding Nemo.
Yeah, it shifts its focus.
But Finding Nemo kind of has something similar to Toy Story 2, where it's like Marlin accepts, like, I'm not sure what the future holds, but but I'm, no pun intended, willing to go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
Both a pun is because there's a character named Flo, right. But also
and this
is
is
water.
not to suggest that like Toy Story 2 feels incomplete in any way, because what's so ingenious about how they make these movies is that each one feels like, okay, like I'm satisfied, like we could end it here, but then you give me the next part and you expand on it, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know I needed that. Oh, now
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like the thing. I'm not really sure if I have a thing, but I think like if they never made a Toy Story 3, I wouldn't be like, where's Toy Story 3?
Right.
You know, even as a kid, I remember being like, I really liked the way that ended. You know,
oh, of course, yeah,
and like, and not just like, oh, I liked it like it was well done, but I mean, I liked it like this feels like the end of this story.
And of course, if you did a Toy Story 3 that was about, I don't know, just right off, like kind of off the cuff, but like Buzz being recalled to Taiwan. You know, it wouldn't. You don't necessarily see that paying off the themes.
And I will say,
Toy Story 2
I will say,
and owning up to them. So much of it is just a role reversal of the Toy Story 2 adventure, written by a bunch of hacks.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
You're just making it, just spitballing.
I'm just yeah.
And I will say, actually, in Toy Story 3's defense, is that if they were going to do a third one, at least it does pay off those ideas.
Yes.
In Toy Story 2, you know, it's not just like Toy Story 2 brings up these these interesting themes, and then Toy Story 3 is about like you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so at least it does do that.
Right.
I don't know, but we'll talk more about this when we get to Toy Story 3.
When we get to Toy Story 3. But it is a very good question and a compelling one. And
you know,
very worth plenty of discussion. So yeah, I mean, we have that. Like, is there anything else that you kind of wanted to get into?
No, I think so. Let's talk. So our ranking. Right,
yeah.
as if these are the only 3 Pixar movies we've seen. Mm-hmm. You have Toy Story, you have Bug's Life. I think we both ranked ours Toy Story and Bug's Life.
Yes.
How would this rank? So would this be at the bottom, or?
Yeah, we have to like put a few blank spaces and then like even further.
Toy Story 2 is just at the bottom.
Just like so below everything else. No.
Oh yeah.
Toy Story 2. It goes. Yeah, it's from bottom up. Bug's Life, Toy Story 2.
Yes.
Of course, Toy Story 2, and you know. And if you want to then come at me and then try to talk about how the first one is better, well, Toy Story 2 is better. You know, you're entitled to your opinion, but it's wrong. Because, you know, like Woody, like I really, like immediately within like 10 minutes of watching Toy Story 2, I'm like, oh, this is like even better. Like, because I feel like so much more, and also just like everyone.
Because nothing's
then, like,
compromised. Like
nothing's compromised.
Everything is maintained from the first one and just made better. Like I don't see how someone.
I care about the characters more.
I can see someone saying Toy Story 3 is better than this. I can understand that.
Yes.
But I just don't see how you can say the first one's better than this one.
Because there's just more of a likable camaraderie established among like everyone. Like they're such like watching it again. They're so selfless, you know, in the sense that the Buzz then like there's no other motivation for him and the other toys to do this than just, well, Woody's our friend, we have to like go save him. And it's so great because then also they do address in a wonderful winking nod to like sort of what happened in the last movie. When you threw him out the back of that movie, oh, you had to bring that up. And of course, like, you know, there's a misunderstanding, but they're fierce friends, and they you know, and they're there for each other, and it's great. And well, even though I mean they did think Woody was a murderer.
That's a great thing. Is that these friends, right? Like.
As great as they are.
Like, they really, I guess, don't really know their friends that well. Because in the first one, they think Woody's, like, a murderer.
Yeah.
And then in this one, they think that
Buzz has become a deluded maniac.
Again, they're just like, oh, why are you being so dumb?
Why are you being weird?
Maybe it's not Buzz. Maybe it's when you went to that toy store I went to.
When there were a million other Buzzes.
Maybe
you found one of the other Buzzes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, but... but this is definitely, out of the 3 we've seen so far, definitely the best one.
Definitely the best.
So yeah,
a tour de force.
A toy de force?
A toy de force.
Yes.
I don't think we could top that.
I know. So why don't we just end it here?
Yeah.
Our next episode will be about The Monsters Inc. All right.
Yeah.
See you, everybody.
Bye.